Tonight, our special transmission as the Biden administration reverses its decision to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Zahra Sayed. Today is the 238th day since Israel started targeting Palestinians indiscriminately in its war. In the past 24 hours, Israel has killed at least 53 Palestinians in Gaza. 357 have been injured. Paramedics and civil defense crews are working tirelessly to rescue victims trapped under the rubble of their homes and public facilities. Israeli tanks are continuing to advance into Rafah city center. There is severe artillery shelling and drone attacks in the area. Al Jazeera reports that at least 20 individuals have been killed yesterday. These civilians were attempting to flee within the past day. Palestinian news agency reports 3 civilians have been shot dead by snipers in Deir al-Hawa. Journalist Motasem Dalul has lost another son to an airstrike in Al Zaytun. He lost his first son earlier this month. 2 paramedics have also been killed by Israeli bombs in Del al-Sultan. Over the past 4 days, the death toll in Rafah has risen to 66. The casualties include children. This comes despite an order from the International Court of Justice for Israel to cease its offensive. An official from Save the Children is questioning the need for further evidence to prove the absence of safe zones for children and families in the besieged enclave. The Israeli military says it has seized control of the entire length of Gaza's border with Egypt, the Philadelphia corridor. The death toll from Israel's war continues to rise. At the time of writing, at least 36,224 Palestinians have been killed. A revised report by the United Nations estimates another 10,000 have been buried under the rubble. 81,777 have been injured. Israel's death toll from Hamas's attacks stands at 1,139. Israel stands accused of genocide at the International Court of Justice. The World Court, in its latest ruling, has ordered Tel Aviv to immediately halt its operations in Rafah. Over 1 million Palestinians are seeking refuge in Rafah. Algeria has introduced a draft resolution at the United Nations Security Council amid escalating Israeli operations in Rafah. The resolution demands Israel cease its military offensive and withdraw occupation forces. It highlights the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. The draft stresses the need for access to aid and the opening of border crossings. The document condemns civilian targeting and infrastructure destruction. It says Israel should comply with international law to protect civilians. The draft has received broad diplomatic support. However, the United States has expressed opposition. It calls the resolution unhelpful. Deputy Ambassador Robert Wood says it is important to prioritize a temporary pause in fighting and the release of prisoners. He says the new resolution will not change anything on the ground. The United States has previously vetoed similar resolutions. The resolution's fate remains uncertain as it depends on potential U.S. action. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Israel needs to work on a comprehensive plan for governing and stabilizing Gaza in the post-war period. Blinken says without such a plan, Israel would face prolonged war or chaos in the region. The United States has been urging for a day-after plan to transition Gaza under a reformed Palestinian Authority, but Israel insists on maintaining security control. The war has displaced over 1 million people, with casualties rising. Israel continues military operations and faces accusations of killing civilians. Blinken has called for accountability for recent civilian deaths. On the other hand, the United States has approved significant arms transfers to Israel. The Biden administration has reversed its decision on imposing sanctions on the International Criminal Court. White House spokesperson John Kirby says imposing sanctions on the top court is not the right approach. The move has received backlash from some lawmakers. On the other hand, human rights groups welcome the decision. Analysts suggest this move reflects the administration's struggle to balance support for Israel with global human rights concerns in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has expressed disappointment. The news comes as European allies have affirmed their obligation to uphold the court's decisions. A senior U.S. State Department official has resigned. The resignation follows a report by the Biden administration stating that Israel is not obstructing aid to Gaza. The report is in response to President Biden's national security memorandum. Stacey Gilbert has served as a senior civilian military advisor. Gilbert says the State Department has made the wrong assessment on Israel. The report acknowledges Gaza's aid insufficiency. However, it does not hold Israel responsible for impeding aid efforts. It has found Israel's use of U.S. weapons inconsistent with international law, yet it does not conclusively block arms transfers. Gilbert's resignation has been welcomed by rights groups. Notable resignations so far include Josh Paul, Lily Greenberg Call, Major Harrison Mann, Hala Rarit, Anel Shalin, and Darek Habash. The growing number of resignations reflects a dissent within the administration over its policies regarding Gaza. The European Union foreign ministers have discussed the possibility of imposing sanctions on Israel for violating international humanitarian law. Irish Foreign Minister Michael Martin says there have been significant discussions on potential sanctions. Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris condemns Israel's actions, advocating for sanctions as a viable option. Israel defends its actions. It says the offensive is meant to eliminate Hamas fighters in Rafah and rescue prisoners. An Israeli think tank says there have been significant changes in the textbooks being taught in Saudi Arabia over the years. The report by Impact C covers the kingdom's textbooks from 2019 to 2024. It claims that Israel is no more an enemy country. The report says references to Palestine have been removed from most maps in the textbooks. It indicates alterations in content and toning down of hostile language towards Israel. References to Israel as an enemy have been modified in newer editions. For instance, a high school social studies textbook now refers to Israel as the Israeli Occupation Army instead of the Zionist enemy. Speculation persists about Saudi Arabia normalizing relations with Israel. For now, Israeli aggression on Gaza has stalled progress. Saudi Arabia says it remains firm in its support for Palestine. It says no normalization with Israel will occur without progress towards Palestinian statehood and a ceasefire. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad. Assalamu alaikum.